Tennessee, Fort Campbell is not only a massive military installation, but a very active one. It's the home base of the U.S. Army's famous 101st Airborne Division, the 5th Special Forces Group, aka the Green Berets, and another elite group, the 160th Special Operations Aviation Regiment, also known as the Night Stalkers. The main section of the base, where the barracks, offices, commissary, and other buildings are, is relatively small in comparison to the overall size of the base. The rest of the base is made up of the 93,000 acres of dense forests, grassy fields, streams, and lakes that are often used by these units for various live fire and field training purposes. This large stretch of wilderness is simply known as the Back 40. It's kind of an old American expression that farmers use to refer to a large, remote area of land located far from the main house or buildings. If I've learned anything in my years of researching the strange and unexplained in relation to the military, Fort Campbell is a base that seems to pop up quite often, maybe even too much for the sake of the soldiers and their families living there. Being in the military can be challenging enough on its own, but on Fort Campbell, there have been numerous reports of hauntings in areas of base housing, such as Pierce Village, Hammond Heights, and Lee Village. There have been highly documented UFO sightings nearby, one being all of the weird, egg-shaped objects and other things sighted by multiple military personnel around Kentucky the same day Air Force Captain Thomas Mantell was killed chasing one of them in January 1948, or a Ramiel diamond-shaped craft being chased by Chinook helicopters around Fort Campbell and frying one of the base's radio towers, as reported by an Army police officer in the 1980s. Then there's the unexplained creature sightings, like the Kelly Hopkinsville Green Men encounter in 1955, and a growing list of terrifying Bigfoot encounters in the area. In short, Fort Campbell is not only an active military hub, it seems to be a magnet for the paranormal. But this isn't a ghost story, or a UFO story, and although some might think so, it's not even a Bigfoot story. This is something else. According to the men in these accounts, and taking into account stories from nearby states, like Michigan, there is another kind of terrifying creature that roams through Fort Campbell's training grounds. As told by the soldiers who witnessed it, this is the Smoke Pit, and these are true stories of Dogman encounters in the Back 40. Oh, 12 days down. 2 more to go. Whew, this bites. I should order a pizza. Hey, does anybody remember our grid point? Huh? No. It's just the RTO again. Hey man, I know you're doing battery runs, but do you happen to have any caffeine on you? Like a Monster or something? What the hell are you doing? You know I can't hear you, right? Good thing you're a radio man, not a sniper, because... Oh shit. Oh! What the hell is that? What the... The stories you're about to hear were first submitted to Nick Orton's Tales from the Grid Square project. All of the soldiers who shared these accounts were stationed on Fort Campbell, conducting field training at various times and dates when these events happened. The first soldier writes, I'm stationed at Fort Campbell, Kentucky. The training area we have is called the Back 40, thousands of acres of ranges and training sites. My story takes place in the Back 40 near a makeshift town called Cassidy. It's located in the middle of nowhere, surrounded by forest and thick underbrush, and at that time, It was mid-July, so everything was in full bloom. My company was conducting a 2-week field exercise in this area, and after we had secured this town, my platoon was tasked with pulling a blocking position about 100 meters into the wood line from this town. So this is like day 12 of the 2-week field exercise. I'm located on the far right of our blocking position with my squad. I'm a squad leader of my infantry platoon, and we dig into our position. I'm located 10 to 15 meters from my soldiers with my back up against a tree. Darkness sets on the back 40, the guys are tired, and my team leaders are doing their checks to ensure these guys are awake. Hours go by, and I didn't keep track of time, but if I had to guess, it was around midnight. No moon. Only thing you could see was to our rear, where the town of Cassidy was located. My Alpha team leader is laying with his team on the line, and we're pulling a 50-50 security detail, so one man up, the other asleep. My Bravo team leader is sleeping next to me. Our platoon radio man, the RTO, is walking back and forth behind us, bouncing between my squad and the others all on line in his blocking position. So every 20 to 30 minutes, I hear him walking by, and eventually he comes to me and says, "Hey, Sergeant, you good on radio batteries?" "I'm good, dude," I reply. So being used to hearing him walking by so much, I hear something, and not even thinking about it, I ignore it. Then it gets closer and closer and a lot slower in movement. I look over my shoulder and say, "What the F are you doing?" And that's when I saw whatever it was in a mid-crouch pose about 20 meters from me, making these low, subtle growling noises like a dog or wolf. I froze and felt the hair on the back of my neck stand and my heart start to race. Whatever this was stood at least 5 foot tall, crouched over, sinking lower and lower to the ground. At this point, paralyzed with confusion and fear, and I watch it for another 10 to 12 seconds, and then I reached and grabbed my e-tool, this small shovel, not taking my eyes off what I'm looking at. Then I quickly flipped my PSQ-20s, my night vision, and as I did this, this creature ran in a diagonal line for me, fast. And when I say fast, I mean booking it in a low stance. I flipped my 20s to thermal, and I saw the outline of this thing running. Everyone around me heard it crashing through the woods. It ran too fast to be a man, and too big to be a deer, especially since it was fully standing up as it was crashing through the brush. Whatever it was eventually came back. Later that night, another squad leader told me that he heard loud, deep sniffing noises near his position, and his soldiers were saying that they could smell what resembled a wet dog smell. Sometime before dawn, all of us heard this loud, guttural noise that started up immediately after we heard some coyotes. Coyotes are pretty common in the area, and you'll always hear them yipping and whatnot. But when this thing howled, or whatever this noise was, the coyotes all stopped instantly. I had always heard stories and never believed it, as well as others in my platoon. But after this encounter, we all agreed that we were not alone that night, and there is something lurking out there. It was canine by the look of it. It was dark. I don't want to speculate and give false details, but in the face, it was elongated like a snout from what I could see. I grew up playing in the woods, camping and hunting. I'd never seen or heard anything like that, or felt like that, ever.
Hey, Sergeant.
Yeah?
Our hole is filling with water.
Yeah, it sure is.
Okay.
Anyone got any cigarettes? Preferably dry ones. It's times like these that make me wonder if 4 years of this is really worth the free college. Don't forget about the Dodge Charger.
Who's that?
Probably the RTO again.
Yo, what are you doing? You lose something back there? Need any help? We've all got our nods.
Is that a coyote?
It sounds way too big to be a coyote. Haynes, get your nods up. The interesting thing here is that the second story seems to have happened during the same exercise as the first, but possibly not on the same night, based on the timelines these two soldiers mentioned. But whether it was or not, we have a second soldier reporting an unnerving animal encounter while in the field on Fort Campbell, this time during a cloudburst. While there are many species of wild animals living in the dense forests of Kentucky, both on and off the base, again, this one wasn't something that they recognized. As with the first soldier, this was largely because of the way the thing moved. I was in the 1st Battalion, 502nd Infantry Regiment. Our company had just taken Cassidy, a training town, after about 5 days of situational training exercise, what we called STX. With the town secured, we get pushed out to the wood line to set up a defensive line for any potential follow-on attacks, and naturally it starts pissing on us as soon as we get into the woods. At this point, dudes are spent and annoyed that we got pushed out of the village where there was, cover. We could have been in the buildings or something, but no, we got to go out in the woods. There was a lot of the usual, why is it always our platoon type deal. So we set up a perimeter, setting up a position running perpendicular to a ditch located on the left of our position. The squad leader and myself are co-located with the gunner and assistant gunner. As we lay in the rain, it didn't take long for us to just stop giving a crap. We just ended up leaning back on some trees, side by side, waiting for the index or change of mission. While we were smoking and joking, minus the smoking since at this point our cigarettes were soggy mush, up walks the platoon RTO to swap some 148, our handheld radio batteries. We noticed him early due to the leaves and twigs and the sound of all of his 140 pounds walking slowly and cautiously through the forest. He makes the swap and walks off. About 20 or 30 minutes pass, and we hear the same weighted footsteps approaching. None of us had our nods, our night vision down, or even on, so we just assumed that it was the RTO. The footsteps got close, and we waited for him to say something, but it was just quiet. And after a moment of awkward silence, we call out like, "Yo, what are you doing?" But again, there was no response. Then we heard what I can only describe as heavy sniffing sounds from behind us. It sounded like a hound dog trying to find something. The sound seemed to come from a few meters back behind my squad leader on the right. We sat there and listened, trying to figure out what it was. Then we hear the sounds of crunching leaves and more sniffing somewhere between me and the assistant gunner. Now startled, the gunner and I bring up our nods and turn around to see what the hell this thing was. And at that point, we hear this thing as it now barrels into the ditch on our right and speeds down deeper into the woods. And all of us are just sitting there dumbfounded at what just happened. Whatever that thing was, it was way too heavy sounding to be a coyote. Its footsteps sounded more like someone, or something, sprinting on 2 legs instead of 4. So that ruled out a hog, skunk, or any other normal animal out in the woods with us. We kind of all looked at each other. And I mean, we'd all heard stories. So that's when it hits us, like, damn. Maybe we just saw something people called the Dogman. As I say, we were well aware of the Dogman, be it on the back 40 or in the woods of the Land Between the Lakes area. The funny thing was, our first sergeant is super into the lore, I guess you'd call it. And we mention this thing happening to us, and then he gives us this huge backstory on Dogman, and he mentions stuff about how the Native Americans were pushed off the Land Between the Lakes area to settle it, only for them to then curse it, and some other crazy sounding stuff. This next soldier was serving with the same airborne unit as the first 2, but it's uncertain whether his encounter took place on the same night as the first 2. The first soldier mentioned being in a 2-week training exercise, and this third soldier says his was a 4-week exercise. While the legend of the Dogman creature typically stands on its own, as being some kind of undocumented bipedal animal, as alluded to in the last story, this next soldier offers a possible explanation as to what the origin of the Dogman really is. He believes it might be a creature spoken about often in native folklore. He also got a much better look at it. I'm in the 101st Airborne's 1st Battalion, 502nd Infantry Regiment. There's a lot of rumors and superstition among the guys about skinwalkers and old Native American spirits on the back 40. The Trail of Tears ran right through the base, and there's tons of unmarked graves that the Army has either intentionally ignored or simply lacks the funding to do anything about. But anyway, one night during a 4-week training density in the back 40 of Fort Campbell, a buddy and I are pulling guard on a road using our NVGs. We're laying down on the roadside, and there's this storm drain pipe that runs under the road horizontally a couple of feet to our 7 o'clock. It's around 0200 in the morning, so it's dark, there's a light rain falling. I'm watching the road one way, and my buddy is watching the other way as we wait for the enemy. And that's when something strange happened. All of a sudden, my buddy is rolling around, hooping and hollering about something touching him. Like, it grabbed me, bro. Holy effing shit, it tried to pull me into the drain. I didn't know what the hell was going on, so I peeked my head into the storm drain to have a look. From somewhere inside, I heard what sounded like grunting, kind of like a wild boar. It was distant, but I also swore I could hear the sound of human feet slapping on concrete as it ran away. I stepped back from the drain and aimed my NVGs across the street towards the exit of the drain pipe while my buddy crawled away. What I saw, standing across the road in the tree line, 75 meters away, looking right at us, can only be described as a legit Dogman. It had to be 8 to 9 feet tall, with a canine's head, the body of a wolf, and standing on its hind legs. Its shoulders were broad, but I couldn't tell if it had hair or if its skin was just leathery. But I did see ears, pointy and large, almost elfish-like. On seeing it, I yelled and let off a burst of sim rounds. We didn't have any live ammunition, right? Of course. Not gonna lie, it scared the complete hell out of me. This Dogman then turned and runs into the woods. It's knocking down some of the smaller trees. It's